adequate, let's say that.
Okay, I'll tell you what's more than adequate. Your film reviews are more than adequate. Let's kick off with Chappie then, which is an American science fiction film.
Actually, it's South African.
Oh.
Yeah, South African.
Okay, interesting. Now, what's the whole film about then?
Well, in the not-too-distant future, police robots have been designed by a young man called Dion Wilson, played by Dev Patel, who you may know from Slumdog Millionaire. I don't know what TV show he was on over here. Shameless or something like that. I honestly don't know. I don't watch those kind of shows. And he, in his spare time, has been designing an artificial intelligence, and he's been trying his best to try and find a test subject for it, but he's always been turned down by his mean old boss, played by Sigourney Weaver, who's in the movie for the whole of 5 minutes before she vanishes, even though she's been used for all the trailers and such.
Oh dear.
He manages to find a robot that was going to be thrown onto the scrap heap, and just as he's about to install the magical AI chip, he gets kidnapped by the Antvert, and the movie then goes on to try and see if Chappie can become a real human being, etc., etc., etc. Now, it has to be said first and foremost that this movie has got a lot of bad press over the past few days. The initial critic response to it was very negative, to say the least. Some people going as far as to say that the director Neil Blomkamp is the next M. Night Shyamalan, in that he made only one good movie and the rest of them have been tripe. I can say, quite honestly, that I really enjoyed this movie, and I don't understand quite where the sheer amount of venom and negativity is coming from. I suppose the reason why is because it is a very mixed-up movie. The constant analogy that's been thrown about is that it's a movie which is Short Circuit meets RoboCop. On the one hand, it can be very twee, very almost family-friendly and like a modern-day fairy tale, but on the flip side of it, it can also be very, very violent and very action-packed. And whilst Neil Blomkamp's work has been very mixed before, I know that a lot of people really, really like District 9, but... well, I do as well, but one of the problems that District 9 had was that it started off as this pseudo-documentary, then it turned into The Fly, then it turned into giant robots thumping each other for the final quarter of the movie. And with this, it's a similar kind of thing. It starts off in almost like briefly pseudo-documentary into RoboCop-level satiricalness, then into gangland stuff, then into Short Circuit, then back into RoboCop, then into Transcendence, then into Transformers. And it's more of a problem here because whereas before it was just a case of, oh, it's different types of movies mixed together, here it's different types of tones. Like I say, we have the wacky, silly bits where Chappie's being taught how to become a hard man, to become a gangster, which I have some very funny moments. I have to say that Charlo Copley, who does all the physical amusements for Chappie, which were motion captured over it, he's fantastic, and he does a great vocal performance of Chappie as well. Those bits are funny, but then we have moments where he's beating people up and shooting people, and whilst that some of the action stuff is very well directed, the issue is that we're kind of flopping from something that you could quite easily show to a family audience to something that would be more geared towards teenagers or to adults. And it can never really settle down long enough for it to really take on a full effect. Performance-wise, everyone is fine. Dev Patel is great as always as Dion Vert, who some people are very sniffy at. I thought they were okay, even though it does feel as if they are just playing themselves. I mean, in this movie they play characters called Ninja and Yolandi, and the two people from Dion Vert in real life are called Ninja and Yolandi, and they also wear the Antvert t-shirts, so it kind of feels as if they just wandered on set. They look fantastic, they look part of the world, but there's a certain bit of it which does feel a little bit wooden in a way. The big negative performance in this is Hugh Jackman's character, who feels like this very extremely two-dimensional, almost Saturday morning cartoon bad guy. This moustache-twirling, nasty human being who is a devout Christian who sees Chappie as being an affront to God, who's constantly making references to God and how Chappie is an unholy abomination and blah-de-blah-de-blah. I, once again, really like the movie, but, as has been said before, and as I've said previously, it is stuck between 2 points, never really being sure where it's going to be. This charming, almost 21st century take on Short Circuit, or whether it is going to be the grittier RoboCop kind of thing. And as it never really settles down, you kind of feel a little bit disappointed by it. But what is there is fine. fine, even though there are some moments where you kind of wish there was a little bit more of Sharlto Copley doing the silly Chappie stuff and it was a little bit lighter, but sometimes you kind of wish it was a little more gritty and a little bit more satirical. In the end, I think that many of the reasons why it has been received so negatively is the marketing. The marketing for this movie has been almost hilariously bad. There's about 3 different trailers out for it at the moment which illustrate 3 different movies. One which shows it as being this existential sci-fi drama about human nature and consciousness. One which is the typical popcorn-munching blockbuster summer movie, and one which is just so ludicrously out of touch it's hilarious. It's they created these robots to control and they stole one to rebel. Pow, 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 pow. And you're sat there with your arms folded thinking, well, it's not any of those movies at all. The poster for it has the tagline, humanity's last hope isn't human, which doesn't factor into the movie at all. All the press and all the interviews that have been done have been with Sigourney Weaver, who's only really in the movie for a grand total of about 5 minutes. At the end of the day, I did enjoy it. I did find it fantastic. There are some really nice things about it. Absolute worst, sadly, like all Neil Blomkamp stuff, is that it's terribly unfocused, which is a damn shame.
Now, can I just ask you a good question? Who is actually playing the ninja? Because on the screen I've got in front of me, it says that the ninja is played by the ninja.
Yeah, Ninja is played by Ninja. Yolandi is played by Yolandi. They're using the exact same names that they use in real life as they do in the movie, which is okay. Some people do it with movies. That's perfectly fine. But at the same time, they're also wearing DeAntvert merchandise. It feels very much like that scene in Spaceballs where Yoga is trying to sell the cast the merchandise of the movie. They're trying to sell them the lunchbox and the colouring book. It's odd, those bits, but they do a perfectly fine job. They're not going to set the world alight by any means, but they look part of this world, which is always a good point. They don't look out of place. It's not the most awkward cameo appearance has ever been, but, they're perfectly fine in what they do.
Now listen, I need to ask you this as well. Has the actual movie been a financial success? Because on the screen in front of me I've got that their budget was 49 million and they only drew 27 million. So that it kind of looks like a loss there of nearly 20 million.
Well, it's worth mentioning at this point that this past weekend there's been a lot of R-rated movies being released in America. I'll be reviewing 2 of them, I think. In America they're considered R-rated because at one moment you see a woman's bottom, which is the wonderful nature of American film classification.
Right.
And it's been generally regarded that the reason why they all turned out so poorly is because they're all R-rated, and Hollywood really, really loves PG-13. This movie could never exist at PG-13 in its current form. There are bits of it where it feels as though it's been tried to be watered down, or it's been tried to be grown up. At the end of the day, you're not entirely sure whether this could be a family movie or this could be an R-rated thing. It could, if with the right editing, be either, but at the end of the day, it's neither, and that's probably part of the reason why it hasn't done so well. It is number 1 in the box office in America, but considering its competition, that's not really saying much.
True. Right, listen, Chris, we're going to take a musical interlude now. You're going to be reviewing Focused and Unfinished Business after this by Rita Ora.